Hey, it's me, Draco Self-Important. This guy here, this is Isaac. He's my new best friend. And we'd like to welcome you to Rainbow Pill University. So we are currently doing the whole live stream thing. Hooray, huzzah. For no apparent reason, because I am about to pop this up so that I can only see myself and cannot tell if anyone is actually watching. Also, I have the chat off. I find these things to be distracting. I don't know quite why I am live streaming this rather than just recording it and uploading it. I think probably because uploading takes my entire life, but if I just live stream it and it, originates from YouTube's servers, it seems to, not take my entire life. I don't know. I am recording at a different quality than I'm streaming currently to see if there's a huge difference, and if so, I may end up uploading the recording as a video rather than editing this. I don't know. We'll fucking figure it out. So welcome. Pretty sure I've solved the loneliness epidemic. I know, lofty claims. If you have been here before, there's going to be kind of a shift in my, tone, as it were. I'm no longer trying to address this shit to anyone in particular. If you find it helpful, awesome. If you don't, awesome. But I am a person that spent a long time really not liking myself and not identifying that as being true. And not understanding why, and yada, yada, yada. And, I've gotten to the point that, I prefer my own company, if that makes sense. There are definitely people with whom I like to spend my time, but I have very little social battery, and I like spending time with me more than, and it wasn't always like that. And, I think that we need to talk, So I think that step one, right, in solving your own personal loneliness is kind of coming to grips with whether or not you are, in fact, presenting yourself in a way. You know what? Let me back that truck way up. It's not about your presentation at all. It's about whether or not you believe that you are worth spending time with, whether or not you believe that you are someone who people would want to volunteer to hang out with, whether or not they actually do or whatever is an entirely different conversation, but it's whether or not you believe that you are, right? And for me, I spent, a lot of my life being the brooding goth kid. Not to say, as, the man sitting before you with a giant sequined skeleton pillow around me, that I am not still, an obnoxious goth kid. I've kept the aesthetic, but also in a really cheery and playful way, if you can't tell by all the rainbows and toys and shit. So, you just have to, kind of identify who you are, right? And I think a lot of us, we don't know who we are. And I think, there's a lot of unpacking that we have to do. Because I truly believe that if you don't think that you are a fun time to hang out with, that, it's because you don't really know who you are, and or you are doing things and behaving in a way that is antithetical to the core of who you actually are and who you want to be. A lot of what people, are most loudly and aggressively against in life are things about themselves that they don't like. And, sometimes they're things that other people are aware are, traits that they have. And other times they're things that they desperately do not want anyone to know are traits that they have. And sometimes they're traits that, it's shit that people don't even know about themselves, right? If you're new here, hi, hello. I didn't know who I was really until I was damn near 40, I firmly believe that the idea of adulthood in society is one that I think is, I don't know. It's odd. I think that we need to look at adolescence differently than we do. I think that part of adolescence is, in fact, giving more responsibility. So, like, there's talk recently about kids, 16-year-olds in the UK being able to vote in general elections, or what. With the idea being they can work, they have to pay taxes, they should be able to have a say in, what those taxes are going toward. I don't think that that's a bad idea at all. Additionally, because in places where you can vote at 16 or, younger ages, as it were, I don't think there are any places you can vote younger than 16, but, not higher voting ages, but the younger the age, the more likely it is to become a lifelong habit, right? Something that you're going to actually do and value and blah, 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 blah. So, I think people should vote as much as I think a lot of them don't do a good job of making decisions about who they vote for. That's none of my fucking business, as it were. And, I think encouraging people to vote by having whatever, right? On the other hand, I think that allowing that same 16-year-old who works at the burger joint, the ability to get married is a whole different, because your vote is something that, like, no matter how shitty your vote is, like, there are term limits on that shit. And your one vote isn't going to, catastrophically ruin your life or anyone else's. But if you are 16 years old and groomed into marrying an adult, like, yeah, that's probably going to negatively affect you. So I think that we need to have more of a conversation about what adolescence is in adulthood, because you are a young adult and an adolescent at the same time in our society. Because even, at 18 years old, you absolutely do not have a fully formed frontal lobe. At 21 years old, right? Like, this is the age for a lot of shit in the United States, and I think in other countries as well. I don't fucking know. Again, you do, for sure, you do not have a fully functioning fucking, like, prefrontal cortex, I think, is, like, the last thing to finally, the thing that allows you to make good decisions and, like, interpret long-term consequences and, the thing that, like, really makes you solidly an adult. And I think that for some people that never fully develops. I think that trauma can cause literal brain damage that doesn't allow that part of the brain to actually, like, kick in. Whether or not that trauma can be healed, and I don't know. I don't have the science. The whole, like, I don't have science to back up the veracity of people literally never having that develop due to trauma. I don't know. That's something that I am inferring just based on my knowledge of other shit. But, it is scientifically accurate to say that it's like minimum 25 before your brain is fully developed, and that for some people it is later. I for sure was one of those people. I was, very emotionally immature for most of my life, and it part of that was because I could not see and or wouldn't acknowledge that I had any issues that I needed to work on. And, anytime anything got brought up that I was like vehemently against that may have been something that I was doing, you go into instant defensive mode and you're like, well, never, not me, no, no, no. Because you don't want to be doing the thing that you know. So, you have to be willing to identify your own bullshit, right? And be willing to make changes and be willing to take feedback. And, a lot of people are not there. And I mean, if you're not, Godspeed, that's fine. You have to become prepared for things, but don't be surprised when you are alone and you feel lonely about it, because you're spending time with you and you don't enjoy that. That's fixable. Right. One of the biggest things for me was a tactic to help to almost completely eliminate my anxiety, my generalized anxiety. I still, there are still social anxiety situations that I have issues with or whatever, not a ton, but there are definitely times that I'm like, oh my God, I cannot be bothered to engage with people at this point. But I think a lot of that is really more my probable autism, definite ADHD, definite CPTSD, that doesn't allow me to have enough working memory, as it were, for my brain to actually function for long term. And then if I start getting more stimuli introduced, it just doesn't feel good. It feels kind of like I'm being electrocuted from inside my own skull. So that's not fun. But I spent a great deal of my life sitting around thinking about how fucking awful I was, and I spent most of my adult life in shitty fucking relationships with shitty fucking people, and most of my adolescence as well. It's because I didn't believe I deserved any better. And I didn't think that, I was like, oh, well, I'm so flawed and I'm so fucked up and I'm so whatever that I should be willing to put up with other people's flaws and blah, 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 blah. Instead of thinking, well, if I fix my bullshit, then I won't be expected to put up with other people's bullshit. Because, if you're not a horribly flawed person because you've worked out your shit and you only have normal people flaws that don't make people want to, run and hide and don't amount to what becomes abusive, repellent behavior, it's a lot easier to spend time in your own company. And it's a lot easier to attract other people to want to spend time with you, whether that be, platonically or romantically, right? Because I don't think that the loneliness epidemic is purely about relationships, as in, romantic relationships. I think it is about relationships, but I think a lot of it is your relationship with yourself. But, a lot of what people need is just interaction with other humans. And I think that you can get that without it being from a romantic partner. I mean, for me, at this point in my life, I will say, like, it's such a rare occasion that I text a friend, let alone actually hang out with anyone, because my entire social life is my children and my partner. Because, like, I work long hours on the days that I work, which leaves me with very little time to do anything other than work. I have three children that have various, dentist appointments, doctor's appointments, whatever that I've got to cart them around to, in addition to wanting to, like, do shit with them. I'm a big fan of, like, going out and doing shit with the kids, whether that be, taking them to, like, Marshalls and TJ Maxx and shit, because the girls both love that shit, or going to the water park, or going to the trampoline park, or going to an outside park. We do a lot of park things, a lot of, like, run around and play activities, which, sometimes I actually get out there and do shit, and other times I sit on the sidelines and be old about it. Uh, but there's a lot that you've got to unpack, right? This is not an easy task. This is not something that you can just snap your fingers and do. There's a huge amount of work that goes into really, truly liking yourself and becoming your own favorite person and meaning that. I get very few comments to begin with, and most of the comments that I get are negative, because generally, people only leave comments on content that that makes them feel very strongly, right? It either really pisses them off, or it really, is good, right? I am a person who will leave comments on things if I'm, like, trying to get someone's attention for something, if I want to interact with them in some way. But that's usually because I, like, want them to interact with my content, because I, like, have something to say to another content creator. I'm, like, trying to give feedback or whatever. But, like, I don't go out and say negative shit on people's videos that, like, make content that isn't for me, that I don't like. Like, for example, I don't go out and watch a bunch of, like, pro-Israeli propaganda and make a bunch of nasty negative comments on that, despite the fact that I, like, vehemently disagree with it, because, like, I have better shit to do with my day. However, I did a live. I've thought about redoing the video. Elliot Jokelson was quoted in what is it, JNS, which is a Hasbara paper. But, it's an international publication where he was quoted as an expert on anti-Semitic art, I guess. And, it's complete fucking bullshit. But he has, a very visible digital trail of bullying online. I am not the only person that he has bullied. He bullied some random ass person on Facebook who was asking him just a genuine question, but he comes along and tries to insult me physically, and, just poop emojis, just incredibly childish shit. And, like, if he could engage with any of the points that I was making in any way, shape, or form, I might give a shit. But he just doesn't. He's just trying to be like, haha, you're gross. Which, like, if y'all knew the amount of times that I get trapped in a mirror just fucking with my own hair, which, right now, Isaac is kind of smushing it a bit. But, like, you don't have to think that I'm cute, right? Like, I think that I'm plenty cute. I have a partner who thinks that I'm plenty cute, that's cool. Like it, if you don't think that I'm attractive enough to like watch, first of all, you could just listen. Like you don't have to look at my face, but also you could just watch something the fuck else. No one's making you be here, you know. But when you're talking about yourself, you have to be with yourself all the time, and when you feel very badly about yourself, you have a couple of options. You can try to fix that, or you can lash out at others like a giant fucking baby. I tried to fix it, and I did, and I'm much happier for it. My life is not perfect by any stretch, right? Yeah, Mr. Elliot hit a classic of the I live in my parents' basement as if I'm not middle aged and so old that I don't have parents to have basements to fucking live in. You have to have parents living to live in their basement. So, try again. I'm real old. I assure you that this fucking makeshift bunk bed situation is very much my own in my own rented apartment. I mean, you could be like, haha, you rent a shitty fucking apartment. Like, if you want to hit that, that's at least accurate. That is something that I'm not happy with in my life. So, like, you might be able to hurt my feelings there. Probably not, because it's like, well, you know, I can't control how the credit reporting system works, and that, you know, that's a whole other thing. I'm essentially trapped here because my credit sucks, in part because of student loans, in part because of medical debt, in part because of pandemic emergency loans, that blah, 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 blah. It's a whole thing. But it is what it is. For example, my teeth are also a thing that gets brought up constantly, and it's like, okay, well, I'm sorry, I can't afford the healthcare to take care of my luxury bones. Dental care in this country is for some reason astronomical. I don't feel bad. Right? Like, I feel bad in that it pisses me the fuck off that I can't get adequate dental care at a price that is affordable for me to do that and also live a decent life and be able to feed my children, more than goldfish crackers or whatever. You know, but it doesn't like make me feel bad to have someone, and 9 times out of 10 people come to me to tell me how gross I am with faceless accounts. And sometimes, I go and do a little digging, which I did with Mr. Elliot, and he's got like a whole ass public profile. He's got like an IMDb page and all kinds of shit. He is out there in the public eye, just being the biggest, dumbest asshole in the world. But, ethno-supremacists are like that. I don't know. What you gonna do? Nothing more dangerous to those people than someone who doesn't conflate the ideas of anti-Semitism and anti-Zionism, and that very clearly makes a distinction between those two things because, not all Jews are Zionists, and I don't know any Zionist Jews in my real life. And in my real life, I know Jews. So I know some very vehemently anti-Zionist Jews, in fact. And it's like, because I have people in my life that, like, have a conscience. Like that don't enjoy genocide, that think that any project that is, like only going to be successful if genocide occurs is probably bad, and that we should probably stop like supporting it. And but I digress. I digress a lot. If you're not into that, sorry. But identifying, the things that piss you off the most and asking yourself why those things piss you off, if you're not quite sure what it is about you that you don't like, if that makes sense. Because, a lot, I don't know, man. You have to dissect this yourself. There are innumerable reasons that people fucking hate themselves. I think for a great deal of people, myself included, it has to do with your parenting, from your parents, not your ability to parent. Because I think a lot of us were told over and over and over again that simultaneously we were not living up to our potential, and also we couldn't ever. Like, that we had this massive potential, but we were just too fucking dumb or lazy or whatever to actually live up to that potential. And I think in a lot of cases that was because we were fucking autistic and nobody bothered to notice. And, just kind of let us cruise about flailing and failing and, periodically doing really well. And being like, why can't you do that all the time? And, being like, I don't fucking know any better than you do, bro, but I can't. So, like, can we adapt to what I can do and move from there? Or are you just going to make me feel like shit for the rest of my life because I can't, possibly deliver the max output of everything all the time forever? Some days I'm just going to be mediocre, But I think a lot of it as well, a lot of us were raised by parents that did not have the ability to regulate their own emotions and somehow expected their children to be able to regulate their emotions. The people with the not yet fully developed brains are supposed to be the ones to anticipate the needs of, and all this to say, like, in my early years of parenting, I did this shit. I still am, like, I will catch myself, like, throwing a big giant baby fit because my routine has been interrupted. Because that is something that I definitely do. Like, if I'm, oh, dude, I flipped out on the middle kid. Like, by flipped out, I mean, I was like, in the hall, like, the flappiest, most autistic response ever, because it was my birthday. I had gotten off work that morning, and I told them in advance that I was going to go to my partner's place for a couple of days, because I had to make sure that they were going to be home to take care of the dog. So, and the cats as well, but the dog has to actually go outside. Like, the cats feasibly could survive for a day and a half without me. The dog, that's not going to go well for anyone. So, and, like, I had said, like, oh, I'm going to pick them up after work, and so as I get up to go take a shower to get ready to leave, they're like, oh, you're about to shower? Well, in 20 minutes I have to rinse this hair dye, bleach, whatever the fuck it was, out of my hair. And I'm like, I cannot possibly do everything that I need to do in 20 minutes. And I flapped and was like, about it, and, like, that's ridiculous. Like, on one hand, it's like, hey, man, I told you what my plans were, and on the other hand, it's like, yeah, but I can't remember my own plans half the time. How the fuck am I expecting the child with also my genetics and, the teenager brain to have better results? So I am still a work in progress, right? But, like, I don't know, man. Like, I still am able to, kind of kick back and dissect the things that are still affecting me, right? Like, when I have sort of rougher interactions with people, I sit back and dissect that. And that's something, I've always been kind of a navel gazer, as it were. I've always been really introspective and really overthought things. And I used to do it with a scrutiny that came from external sources and external expectations. And the way that I would judge myself and judge other people was based on a lot of, societal shit or shit that was, like, important to my family or, whatever. And doing the work to really identify what my values are and where my values come from and whether or not I can comfortably defend them. Because I got, into the debate bro culture back in like the 2020 situation, and I still do enjoy a debate here or there. I am willing to debate Elliot Jokelson, just for the record, because he can't do anything except call me names and leave poop emojis, and so I would love to have him try to have an actual conversation about, like, genocide and watch him flounder and just scream anti-Semitism at the top of his lungs and then run away. I don't know. I can't imagine he would do anything else. I can't imagine he would actually be able to hold up his end of a conversation at all, but I digress. Got into the whole debate thing, and so started to really challenge my own beliefs. And I mean, for the most part, I didn't have anything like really drastically change. I've tweaked some things over the past 5 years or so. Definitely become way more left and way less liberal. Learning the difference between those things, because in the U.S. you're presented with liberal ideology as the furthest left that is feasible, and that communism and socialism and that these are big scary boogeymen that basically aren't even on the political spectrum. They're just evil outright, and we don't even talk about those. It's the we don't talk about Bruno of political ideologies. Just I don't know, man. Basically, I've spent my entire adult life re-educating myself, because the education that I received was not only lackluster, but completely filled with lies and misrepresentations as far as history goes. And social studies and all of that shit. Like what we are presented with as far as what America is, where America came from, what American ideals are. What American ideals are on paper versus what they are in practice are very different things, and it's quite unfortunate, but what are you going to do? Man. So, I think that identifying for yourself where your problems with yourself are is the first step, right? Because I think that when you do that, a lot of times, if you really investigate those issues, you don't actually have a problem with it. Somebody somewhere told you you're supposed to. Let's take laziness, right? I personally don't really enjoy the term at all, because I think that laziness suggests choice. And although I think, there are definitely times that people can and do choose to be lazy, most of the times that people are criticized for being lazy, it is most likely a form of executive dysfunction. And that was the case in my entire life up until, right this very minute. I still, at times, by some not so great actors, will get accused of being lazy. And it's like, but am I though? Because it's like, well, I do all of these other things, but I'm not able to do these things over here. It's, but having the experience of knowing that I want to do something and not being able to make myself do it, and like really reconciling that, like, that has been the case my entire life. And it wasn't just that I, was making the decision to do the wrong thing or whatever. It was that, like, my brain doesn't always do what I want it to do, man. And, you have to learn how your brain actually works and work with it. And for some of us, that takes medication. I found meds that actually work. From what I understand, especially if you have ADHD as an adult, it is very important that you be medicated. That they've done studies, and people who are medicated have longer lifespans than those who are not, because it really puts a lot of stress on your entire system for you to be in the constant state of, survival mode, essentially, that not being able to manage your life with ADHD. Like, yeah, the whole not being able to ever turn off your brain thing, it's kind of rough. And so being able to focus your energy on things that are, like, useful and helpful, and being able to facilitate your life, that's good. And medication is good in that regard. There are lots of things that you can maybe get by with without medicating. There are lots of people who probably should be on medication that aren't, and that, whatever. Medicated or not, right? Therapy or not, because a lot of these things, especially when we're talking about the United States, are cost prohibitive. Access is an issue. You can do a lot of work on your own. I highly recommend journaling. I highly recommend writing things down. But you don't have to. I literally just sitting around and thinking, right? Just dedicate time to sit around and either, don't have anything on, right? No music, no TV, no whatever, or have something on that is not going to keep your interest, that you can tune out of. You know yourself, you know what things are going to allow your mind to wander, right? This is the opposite of what people tell you to do with meditation. I am not asking you to clear your mind at all. I am asking you to delve into the minutia that is your brain. I would like you to dissect your day, dissect shit that has not gone well for you. Those moments that you replay in your brain over and over and over again, we need to start looking at those from a different perspective to figure out what led to the things that went wrong. Right. Because you may have gone over in your head over and over and over again some shit that you said or some shit that you did that was, like, super, like, literally cringe inducing, that, like, literally makes your stomach knot up. And so, like, what the things are that happened that didn't go well, but, like, where did those things come from? Can we really dive into that? And how do we fix it? Right. There are, you have to learn to work with your own limitations, to figure out what your strengths and weaknesses are. Confidence is something that gets brought up a lot in the whole discussion of loneliness, and confidence comes from liking yourself and believing that you have something to offer the world. And the only way that you can truly have confidence is to work on yourself, so that you can truly like yourself and believe that you have something to offer the world. No matter what that is, right? Like, you don't have to be a fucking rocket scientist. You don't have to fucking cure cancer to be a worthwhile human being. You just have to, like, live your life and, do your best and not be a big old piece of shit. I mean, not going out of your way to harm others is like step one in, being a good person, right? I think that a lot of what our society deems as being a good person is very much performative. It is very much about um, what other people think of you. And I would argue that other people don't fucking know you. And, it's been said a million times, but if you really own it, it will make your life so much fucking better. Other people's opinion of you is none of your fucking business. Even if they share it with you, it's like, you can take compliments and be like, "Oh, that's nice." But if someone has a really negative opinion of you that does not come along with any kind of constructive criticism, that does not come along with anything that you could actually change or do differently or do better, like that, you don't need to value that. Like there's not so knowing what your values are, what your morality is, what you believe is right and wrong, and living truly according to that, and knowing that you, in your mind, based on your values, are doing the absolute best you can do, is far more important than having anyone else believe that. And it doesn't matter who it is. It does not matter if it is your own child. It does not matter if it is your parent. It does not matter if it is your employer, your partner, strangers. Especially, you should not give a shit. These people are not important. Why? Like, they don't know you. And, this is the thing. Ultimately, you probably don't know you. Genuinely, if you do not like yourself and you are not actively trying to do something differently, there is a disconnect there and you need to figure it out. If you're just living your life thinking you ain't shit and you're not doing anything to change that or investigate why you think that if you don't clearly know why, you're doing yourself and everyone that you interact with a disservice. It's like, of course, you're going to be lonely in a situation where, like, sorry, this is wiggling all over the place because it's like leaning on the bed way more than I anticipated, and I'm moving all over the place because, of course, I am. Come on, Isaac. Be the supportive designer pillow. Gotta love. Where did this one come from? Marshalls, I think. I don't know. This one was in Aberdeen. I went to lots of Ross's, Marshalls, and TJ Maxx's over the past week or so. So, didn't actually buy a whole lot of stuff, just happened to be a lot of different places, and I fucking love those places, and so I like to go scope it out, and every once in a while I find something amazing, and this was one of those things. Picked it up and geeked out because it was Isaac Mizrahi, and like I have this jacket that whatever. I'm not gonna ramble about my love of Isaac Mizrahi as a designer, but the nerdy, it's an Isaac Mizrahi sequin skeleton that, yeah, I made my man laugh, and I amused him so much that he dropped $60 on a sequin pillow shaped like a 5-foot skeleton. So, here we are. I spent a lot of my life thinking that I was a completely different human than I actually am. As a trans person, I have a particular, um, I don't know, particularly jarring experience with that concept in and of itself because, I spent forever thinking that I was a fucking girl, right? But not even that, like my hair, right? Like my hair is curly. It's like the least curly kind of curly that you can possibly have. It doesn't curl until it's like way the fuck out. But it is definitely not straight hair, and if I try to treat it as straight hair, it just looks like a frizzy fucking mess. Um, but I was told my entire life that my hair was straight as a stick and blah 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 blah, and like I don't know, man. Like, just there's so much of who I was that was based on who I was told I was. Like, people would make observations about me based on something I did once, and then suddenly that would be like my thing, And like, people do that. People want to put you in categories. People want to put themselves in categories. Um, but a lot of times you get put into these categories and you don't realize it. Um, I think that in the United States, in particular, that there's a generation of people, or a bit of a couple of generations, that were raised by the tail end of the boomers and the beginning of the Gen Xers, millennials, and fucking what the hell, who are the Gen Zers, right? The older Gen Zers. Because some of those Gen Xers were having babies late, or boomers, or I don't know what I'm trying to say here, but the point being, we're seeing all of these videos of the like epidemic of people going no contact with their parents, which is something that I did. And it's something that like all of my kids talk to me voluntarily, even the ones that don't have to. Um, so like, it's important to me that I behave in a way to and with my children that encourages me as like a safe place for them and makes them want to maintain a relationship with me. I never want to be in a position where my kids go no contact with me, because most likely I would deserve it. I can't imagine my children suddenly, spontaneously, just cutting me off for no reason. But, I also would imagine that before any of them would do such a thing, that they would talk to me. And, there definitely have been times since I've become more enlightened as a parent that they have. Um, it was essentially since I got divorced. So, like, we're talking like 2020, because my ex-wife did not help my parenting at all. As far as like being the worst version of a parent that I could possibly be, it was with that woman. Um, ugh. And, there are definitely lots of things in my life that are not great, and that, if I could make different decisions and do them over again, I would. And I think that that's reasonable, and I think that that's okay, and I think that being willing to admit that and grow from those things is far more admirable than denying that you've ever done anything wrong, and not being willing to change. And you really have to identify what things about you don't like, versus what things about you other people don't like that you've taken ownership of, and parse those things out. And then the shit that you can fix and that is worth fixing, fix it. It takes work. I hear scratching, and I am wondering if it is because one of the guinea pigs has escaped, because I can see both cats and the dog right now. Well, now it has stopped. I can't see the dog's head, so I kind of feel like he was doing something weird and making a noise because the noise was, I don't, whatever. Uh, if one of the guinea pigs got out, she is inevitably under a chair, and I will just get her later because none of the other animals are trying to eat her, so she'll be fine. Anyway, um, I was definitely not the person that I wanted to be in the times that I didn't like being alone, in the times that I was most likely to um, throw myself into the absolute depths of a codependent relationship was because I felt like I wasn't good enough and that I wasn't worthy of better. Because, in some regards, I was not, because I was not behaving um, to my own moral standards, basically. When you are raised in a way that you learn that things that are, inherently bad and wrong are okay things to do, and the people in your life do them. And the people in your life, say negative things, and when you're raised by people that, in retrospect, are probably not that great, um, you're going to have a skewed moral compass. And unfortunately, regardless of the morality of our individual families, have all been raised in a society that is chock-a-block with a bunch of different bullshit that, affects your thought processes in a way that is incredibly toxic, and that if you don't work your way through it, you're fucked. Because the system is rigged against you in every conceivable way. And by the system, I mean the interlocking fucking bullshit that is, our global society at this point. There is feasibly no difference between Western, Eastern, Middle Eastern. It's all same shit, different day. It's all ultimately capitalist. It's all ultimately run by the same couple of dudes. And you just have to learn how to live within that system. And the way to do that, and not hate every moment of your existence, is to really work on yourself and give yourself the best possible moral standing, to take out into the world, right? You can't be expected to know everything about everything. You can't be expected to have a take on everything. I'm not suggesting that you even broadcast, any of this. Not everyone can or should have a stupid YouTube channel where they talk about their most, intimate personal stories. But you should think through, the negative experiences in your life and how you got there and what things you could have changed. Don't start victim blaming yourself, right? If there are times where you definitely were abused, don't think about, oh, well, if I would have done different, knowing that you could make different decisions to have better outcomes so that your life will be better, and not having guilt or blame about not, when you know better, you do better. I mean, that's really what it is, and it's about learning that you need to know better. It's acknowledging that there's shit in the world that you don't know, and that you would be better with having more knowledge. Even knowing about shit that you don't agree with or is bad, like, having knowledge is never a bad thing. And the more knowledge you have, the more that you can compare that knowledge with other ideas and parse out what are good ideas and what are bad ideas, and, who has got your best interest in mind and who does not. Um, I deleted the Patreon, um, because I don't want anything that I'm doing at this point to at any point be tied to money. Um, there was definitely a point that was something that I was trying to do, and I was catering my content specifically to try to, like, pick up an audience, doing that. And I'm not, yeah. I'm hoping that I can, get a crowd of people that aren't just hater troll pieces of shit. As much fun as I have had, I'm growing tired of dealing with it, because it's not fun anymore. It's really getting quite pathetic that, just being reminded over and over again that there are people out there that, like, really have nothing better to do with their lives than try to bully some fucking schmuck with, less than 500 subscribers. Like, I'm literally no one, and this Elliot dude in particular, who claims that he does not listen to anything that I say and does not watch the videos, has spent, at this point, what's going on 3 months, harassing me. I mean, there's no other way around it. Making comments about my physical appearance, making comments about, basically anything in the world except the points that I'm actually trying to make. Trying to make fun of me for not debating random asshole who at first wouldn't tell me what he wanted to debate to begin with, and thought that I should just debate him on random anything. And I'm like, no. I don't know who you are. No, that's not how this works. I value my time. My time is my most valuable possession, and I'm not going to give it to just anyone. And I think that's, I don't know. I don't think that I will be engaging with the trolls in the same way anymore, or maybe not at all. Maybe just not as much. I don't know. There's going to be a change coming in that regard. I'm just not sure what that change looks like yet. It's no longer bringing me joy, I'm Marie Kondoing the shit out. Just like for, like, 6 months, I Marie Kondoed the whole YouTube thing out of my life. I had somewhere between a spiritual awakening and, psychotic break in March, and the result of that is essentially, I want to do things differently, and I'm gonna, I don't know. It was a very strange experience that I may get into more detail on at some point, but there were mushrooms involved, so it was not just an out of nowhere psychosis situation. Essentially, it was just a trip gone wrong. If psychedelics are not for everyone, I do not recommend for everyone, but for some people they can definitely be useful tools. They've done the studies. It can be helpful with depression. It can be helpful especially with, like, end of life shit. Helping people come to terms with their own terminal diagnoses. But the advice that I give myself and give others, if ever am asked, is stay here. And I didn't stay here. I let myself go off, and it was rough. That's a very long story. But, when the dust settled and I realized that everything in my life was still chill and that, I had set myself up in such a way that, I don't know, I can have my mental health, despite the fact that I have an alphabet soup of mental illnesses that will at times cause my brain to do shit that I don't want it to do, and or cause me to not be able to do shit that I do want to do. I have enough systems of support in place, as well as enough kind of self-support, if you will, and self-sufficiency in identifying shit as it's going down, to protect myself. I don't know. I know who I am and I know how to deal with my shit, despite the fact that who I am and my shit is a lot to fucking deal with. And I think that for a lot of those of you out there who are lonely and upset about it, being alone does not mean that you have to be lonely. And you can adapt to getting your social interactions and getting the, sort of satisfaction you need from, yourself, essentially. I mean, I think that we do a lot of reaching out to others for validation, for engagement, for, stimulation, as it were, whether that be, just someone to keep you company, someone to talk to, someone to whatever. And, although that's not necessarily a bad thing, it's healthy to be able to step away and still be, good. And it's a lot more enjoyable to spend time with people when it feels like a choice. When it doesn't feel like something you need to do. And I've definitely been in situations where, I would do absolutely anything to spend any of my free time with other people. I was constantly out with my friends, I got myself into shitty fucking codependent relationships where I would be constantly attached to people and, I would get upset if they, went out and did shit or, I was a mess, and there were definitely times that I was a really shitty fucking partner, and I mean, even in my current relationship, I am not perfect. In the beginning of the relationship, there were times that I said some snarky shit that, I'm very lucky that he called me on my bullshit and would not take it and held me accountable for my bullshit. But in order to be held accountable for your bullshit, you have to be willing to hear the criticism. Because had I just been oh, well, that's not what I meant, and blah, 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 and doubled down and defended myself or whatever, I could have, exploded what is now the best relationship that I've had, and is, I don't know, healthy and good, and I think that we need to kind of get back to the old fucking hippie roots of really exploring yourself, right? Timothy Leary said many, many years ago, tune in and drop out. You've got to get your brain and your mindset out of society. And you've got to really tune in to yourself and your instincts and your connection to, whatever it is that is existence, right? If you are a religious person, get down with that, but otherwise, like, you exist. You are an electrified meat sack with a, stone fucking infrastructure, right? Like, because your bones are made of calcium. They're basically rocks. Let's be real. Your rocks covered in meat. That, and your brain is all fat. It's electrified bacon, friends. Like, I don't know what to tell you. So, like, the very fact that you exist and are alive is pretty fucking neat. And also, like, if we look at all of the other animals, they have instincts and they, do things and learn things, and, like, they don't have the internet. And they don't have other people's judgments and shit, So, like, we've got to tune in to our own gut, essentially. I think that the values that are being espoused by our society right now are so fucking wacky. And I think that most people know that. I think that Americans, Hassan Piker says this a lot, they're temporarily embarrassed millionaires is how people see themselves. They see themselves as one lottery ticket away from everything being different and them being different fucking people. And it's like, well, okay, so what if that doesn't happen though? What are you doing to make your current existence tolerable for yourself and others, and I mean, if you are going out of your way to cause harm to or be shitty to other people, like, it's no wonder you feel lonely when you're alone, because you know what you've done, and you know that people don't like that. Because that's the whole point, right? Like, you're doing it because people don't like it. And you're like, haha, they feel shitty now like I feel. Well, maybe just try to not feel shitty. Maybe just try to be a better person. I don't know, man. Like, if you feel so badly about yourself that you have to try to make other people feel badly about themselves as like a hobby, then maybe look into that. I think that there's a lot of gender shit as far as the gender wars go that is really contributing to this whole loneliness situation, because men and women are being presented as completely different fucking species. And, again, this is part of the reason that, like, trans people are a no-go in the current society, because if there's fluidity between man and woman, then there can't be this never-ending war. We're getting back to the calling shit gay. Which is like, all right, whatever. It just, to me, is so pathetic. It's just so pathetic that, like, there are these people that so desperately want control and power, and that's the only thing that is of any value to them, no matter how much money they have, no matter, what. It's all about how many things they can control, who thinks that they are in. It's all based around other people's feelings, and it all seems very pathetic, because it seems like, you spend your literal entire life just on a whim being very upset by, like, an episode of South Park. And it's like, bro, if you can't take people making fun of you, like, man, the thing that pisses me off the most when I have these idiots in my fucking comments is that none of them are fucking funny. Every once in a while, someone will say some shit that's actually funny, but none of it's ever funny. And it's really disappointing. And I think that the reason that none of it is ever funny is because none of these motherfuckers ever actually have a point to make, other than they don't like the point that I'm making, but they don't have, like, an argument against it. You know, and I mean, if we get back to, yeah, because a lot of what I've done recently has been far, far, far more political. If we get back to my old bread and butter of the anti-incel content, you know, there were a lot of people who are just upset that anyone would try to, you know, let you know that there's a different way. People who think that they are completely cooked need everyone else to feel that way as well, because they still desire community and they still desire, you know, interactions and all of that shit. And it's like, bro, like, you could get this in a way that didn't result in you hating yourself. That seems really not fun. I don't know, man. Like, I need time alone. I absolutely need time to just sit around and think. And, you know, just kind of go where my brain takes me. One of the best things that I can encourage is, if you are a person who constantly thinks of the worst case scenario, you can weaponize this for your own benefit by using it on the past instead of the future. So traditionally, you'll say, have a job interview coming up, and you'll spend your entire existence fretting about all of the things that could possibly go wrong at said job interview, right? You've got to forbid yourself from doing that. And you do this by taking other events in your life that didn't go as planned and thinking about how they could have gone worse. Right, so you stop yourself from thinking about future things, because you cannot, like, whatever's going to happen is going to happen. You have no idea what the hell, like, you know, you can't predict the future. You really can't. You just got to roll with, you know, you do the best you can with the information you have your information, make your decisions, go. But, like, for example, I fucked up driving to a place the other day. I, like, made a bad decision to try to avoid traffic, and then, like, got myself into worse traffic in the process. But then when, like, fixing my mistake, essentially, we decided to do something different that actually turned out to be better and more fun for the moment, or whatever. But, like, while I was sitting at the red light that I shouldn't have been at, because I should have just stayed on the original route that I was on, I was thinking, like, well, you know, maybe had I stayed on that original route, I'd have been in a horrible accident. Or maybe if we would have done the original plans, some horrible thing would have happened. You know what I mean? Thinking about all of the bad shit that could have happened that didn't, because of some unexpected thing, right? Is it, like, kind of silly? Yeah. Is it any more silly than the thinking about all of this shit that could go wrong in the future? No. It does, like, you know. But the thing about it is, when you worry about things, right, and there are studies, this is a proven thing, your brain goes through all of the same chemical changes as if that thing is happening, right? It may not be to the same degree, but if you are sincerely sitting around thinking about, like, worst case scenario, right? Like, you haven't heard from someone in a minute, and you start to get worried that something has happened to them. And you start to think, like, oh no, what if they've been in an accident and they've been, you know, decapitated and their head flew into a semi, and, like, you go into this whole fucking, like, horrifying story in your head, and you feel all of those feelings, and it does all the same fucking bullshit to your brain. It releases all of the same stress hormones. It's not doing you any good. It's in fact like triggering a bunch of shit that you don't need to have happen in the middle of your day for no fucking reason. On the other hand, if you can successfully do the reverse, those relief hormones of like, man, I'm so glad that shit didn't happen, or man, I'm so glad that this went well, those work too. And so you can, by taking your own tendencies to come up with the worst fucking possible option, aim that at all of the things that could have happened that didn't. And how fucking lucky you are. And how relieving it is that all of those horrible potential things didn't fucking happen. It works the same way. I promise. It has made my life so much better. And, you know, just being able to look back at things and identify what things went wrong and what you can do differently next time, because you don't want to never think of the future, right? But you need to think about things that you can control. You have to think about things that are things that are, you know, within your actions, right? Like thinking about all of the bad shit that could happen, or thinking about all of the shit that you have done that was unpleasant or cringeworthy or whatever, without thinking about like why you did it or how to change it in the future. That's not doing you any good. I would love for each and every person who is seeing this to understand that your time is the only thing that you actually have. You have nothing else. Every other thing can be taken from you, and your time can as well, right? But like it's the most precious thing that you have, that you are always in possession of, that you can share with others. And how you choose to share that time is, you know, it's a reflection of who you are and how you see yourself. And you want that reflection to be pleasant and positive, right? But, you know, ultimately, it's your most precious gift, and you want to value your own time enough to be discerning about how you spend it. And I think that a lot of people who, you know, suffer from extreme loneliness don't understand the value of their own time, in that they don't use any of it in a way that's actually helpful to them. They try to use a lot of it in a way that's helpful to other people. You know, lots of people-pleasing behavior, lots of Sigma grind set, doing shit for, you know, the perspective that you are being productive, and or because you have to, because otherwise you'll die about it. Yay, capitalism. You know, it's, you know, there's definitely a balancing act, right? Like, everything can't be sunshine and roses. That's just not how life works. But there are definitely things that you have choices in life, man. And you should be making choices that are working for you. And, you know, hopefully also working for others. Because if you care so much about what other people think, like, why is the go-to then to harm people? Like, I don't know, man. The whole thing just doesn't resonate with me. But, you know, I think that's because I've outgrown it, maybe. Because there definitely was a time that it did. There was definitely a time that I was like the super edgy, edgelord, negative about everything, like just most pessimistic, like, pain in the ass person that no one wanted to actually deal with, like. And it's because I was under the impression that I was someone that I wasn't in every possible fucking way. Like, just literally every aspect of who I am, I was convinced somehow that I was not that thing. Or that, if I wasn't enough, or was too much, or, no part of me was right. Everything was an area for improvement. And it's like, no, they're definitely, as an overall human being, like, yeah, the only person I'm really competing with is myself, man. Like, I'm competing with me yesterday. And it's all shit that I'm sure you've heard before, and it sounds cliched as fuck. But, like, there's a reason the shit gets repeated constantly. And, the whole idea, because, like, that's the whole thing that I got constantly, like, whined at about in the beginnings of me trying to do incel exit shit was like, well, everybody says we have to change. Yeah, you do. Because you don't like you. And that's a shitty way to be. So, like, fix it. Fix it or shut the fuck up. It's like, if you're not going to do something to fix your own life, then it's pretty fucking, it's hypocritical and also not something that anyone is going to respect if you're going out and, like, shit-talking other people. When people can see that you don't value yourself, they don't value your opinion. Unless, of course, they also don't fucking value themselves, and then you just get into a circle jerk of belittling each other and feeling better for, like, a second, I guess. This is not to say I am a turn the other cheek motherfucker. No. I absolutely believe that you teach people how to treat you, and if people treat you poorly, that it is absolutely acceptable to treat them poorly right back. I'm not going to give you my good graces if you don't deserve it. I start everyone off from a position of respect and let you earn the disrespect. And I think that's how we all should be, not the other way around. You shouldn't start by treating people like shit and having them earn their way up to human in your eyes. It should go the other way. But, with that being said, it does in fact go the other way, and there are definitely people who become, monstrous to me, and I don't, there are people whose opinion I value, and not one of them is a person who I have never met and interact with on the internet. Like, I will take compliments, I will take flattery, I will take all of the good that you will give me, and I will discard all of the negative. Because I don't fucking know you. Right? And taking the good, it's still taking it with a grain of salt, because I don't fucking know you. It's like getting a compliment from Hitler isn't exactly a fun time. So, like, depending on who's giving you the compliment, sometimes it's like, oh, I don't want that. But, that's not something I've had a great deal of experience with, getting complimented by people who suck. Usually people who suck say really mean things in my comments. I'm like, oh, you acting exactly as I would expect you to act. Yep. Hopefully this has made some sense. So, weaponize your ability to think of the worst. Spend some time thinking. Meditate on yourself. Let your brain go wild. Figure out what your fucking problems are so that you can actually work on them, man. And, if you've got questions, I'd love to answer them. If you want advice, hit me up. Comments are open. Somewhere I have an email, although I very rarely check it. And yeah, um, I think that hopefully I will be back more often than before. Still with some political shit, but also more life advice shit because, yeah. And if people actually start showing up for streams, then I'll open up the chat. But at this point, it's just distracting for me to like identify whether or not one or two people have decided to show up. So I'm just not gonna do that. So, it is what it is, kids. At any rate, uh, I love you. Be safe. Make good choices.